When I was growing up, I remember distinctly that I spent a lot of time in the science lab. I spent a lot of time studying. I spent more of my time in books than face to face with people. And I think one of the reasons that I learned that this was a safe behavior, studying, to do earlier on was simply the fact that I felt really good at academics. I felt like I could excel in my studies. But more importantly, I felt like people liked me if I was smart. The smarter I was, the more I felt I had to contribute and the more status I felt I had. The not so ironic part about this is that we all can relate to this idea of our identity as transactional. This idea that the prettier I look, the more handsome I am, the better athlete I am, the greater musician or artist I am, whatever the accolade happens to be, then shouldn't the trade-off be that others like me? And I think all of us learn this at a really, really early age. You see, as we go through life, we tend to think of our identity as somehow cemented into the ground, when in fact, our identity is somewhat fluid. The day that you finally have your baby, suddenly you are no longer you for that period of time. You have become a mom or you've become a dad. Your identity in this way can change overnight. The same thing with your degree. The day before graduation, you're a student. The day after graduation, you're a chiropractor, a doctor, a dentist, a physiotherapist, whatever the case happens to be. I think we all get so hung up in the idea of who we are, this idea that our identity is so fixed, when in fact, it's our value systems. It's our value systems that are somewhat fixed. It's our identity that is somewhat fluid. But I want you to ask yourself, what parts of your identity have you or do you feel are transactional? What part, in perhaps some unconscious way, do you feel that if you excel at this part of you, that means someone else must like you? And it's this part of our identity, this part of why we're working so hard towards something, that we need to dig a little deeper in, because therein lies your insecurity. So you see, the story ended for me in quite an unusual and perhaps maybe a little bit of a sad manner, because the day of graduation, of high school I should say, my best friend turned to me and said, "Do you know the only reason I've been friends with you this entire time is so that I could cheat off you?" You can imagine this was not the news I wanted to hear on that bright graduation day, but it was the news that made me realize that you have to think of yourself so much more as why you want other people to like you. This idea of value systems, what we hold so strong, what we hold so true to our hearts, is actually ingrained in us. Some studies show before the ages of even 6 or 7. We know inherently what we really truly care about. And the reason I want to bring up this point is because when you have an emotional reaction to something, it often means that it's something that is against or butting up against your value systems. And the clearer you are about what you hold to be true, what you want to nurture, what you want to fight for, the better you can understand your emotional reactions when things don't go quite your way. In the same example that I give a couple of videos ago about my son wanting the Smarties to be divided so equally, it had nothing to do with the candy, but everything to do with this idea of fairness. So I'll leave you with this idea. What part of your identity is transactional, and what parts of your value systems do you hold and can you honor to be only yours so that it's true to yourself?